They'll never be able to be of service if first you don't believe you deserve it. You're not the only one, the first or last. No one is perfect. Haven't you heard this? Now stop thinking of your diagnosis as a confinement. We're all just people that need to be reminded when you can't get out of bed in the morning because of fear, trauma, shame, guilt, endless racing thoughts. You need those people to remind you who you are and your purpose. And if you still haven't found it yet, ask yourself how you can be of service. How is your illness serving you? This isn't taboo, not anymore. I refuse to believe it anymore. If we are the mad ones, then let us laugh the loudest. But in this journey, in our terrifying self-discovery, know that you can stand in a room and you be the proudest. Thank you. So many years ago, I would have never dreamed of being on this stage and performing that poem for you. And although it still scares me sometimes, I'd like to share my story and what I've learned from it because I really believe in it. This story begins with 12-year-old me waking up for school as a little girl in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I woke up that morning and I just couldn't. Something inside me told me I couldn't go to school that day. And it was the first time I could remember lying to my mom where I was old enough to know better, and I also knew exactly what I was doing. So yeah, I guess you could judge me for lying to her about this. But that's the problem. I didn't know what this was. I had no idea what was going on. I just woke up that morning and I felt completely empty and hollow. And there was no way that I was going to go to school and be happy and learn anything. And so I had to do something. I put my lamp over my forehead, rubbed my hands together really fast, and made my skin really damp. And when my mom came into my room to wake me up for school, I lied to her. I told her that I was sick and that I shouldn't go to school. And it worked. And this went on for years. When I was feeling better and I did go back to school, I was fine, and I did really well. But on the days that I woke up feeling that same way, I would lie to my mother, say I was sick, and I would sleep the day away in the darkness while they were at work. And a therapist told me many years later, but you were sick. Those four words changed everything. They were the microscopic heat to the heavy chains around my neck, weighing me down. I unlocked it, I set myself free. But what about the other people that feel like me? There are other people, right? And so this went on throughout high school too. During my high school career, I was super involved with my class. I got good grades, I won prom princess, prom queen, did the talent shows, won first place, and I loved school. And I loved the people I went to school with. And when I was with my friends and my classmates, I was so in the moment with them. But the problem wasn't when I was with other people, it was when I was alone. I never understood how my depression could break into my temple and intrude on my peace. It was a thief. It came unannounced, and it was a proud, persistent villain. And of course, I never shared this with anyone. I was too afraid. Fast forward to college. I attended Kane University at Union, New Jersey. And freshman year was dope. I partied a lot, socialized a lot, did my beginning classes, and it was fun. I was good. Then when I arrived sophomore year, my first semester, I started to feel it coming. It being my crippling depression and anxiety. But this time it was different. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced. And so I didn't know what to do then, and so I slept in my car instead of taking my classes. I started overeating, withdrawing from social situations. And there was no way that I was going to share this with my friends because I could see them having fun, partying all the time, going to classes. And I couldn't mention it at home. I grew up in a Latino family where la ropa sucia se lava en casa, meaning your dirty laundry stays at home. And mental health was not something that we talked about at all. So the next sensible thing I could think to do was lie again and tell my friends, my family, my teachers that I was just gonna take a semester off and just work and figure things out. And as for me, I'd done this before since middle school, so I would just sleep the days away, and one day I'd wake up and I'd feel fine, and I could start over. I wasn't fine. I ended up having a manic episode. And no one, including myself, knew what was happening because none of us were educated on the illness that I was about to be diagnosed with. My manic episode lasted almost 2 months, but it was really gradual at first. In the beginning, I just opened up a Twitter account and started tweeting some funny stuff. And people just thought, wow, Day is coming out of her shell and she's like really funny all of a sudden. And then once I was fully blown manic, I would be tweeting, Facebook statusing, Instagramming, emailing people multiple embarrassing messages and working on multiple projects that I was not going to finish. And then my delusions started kicking in. And that's when people really started to worry because I was acting way out of character. Let me quote one of my poems, Walk Through Hell, so you can better understand what I mean by my delusions. Here's a Reader's Digest version of what happened. I thought I was a rapper. I thought I was going to be on Ellen. I called everyone to let them know I would be on Ellen. I wrote a movie about my life which drove me to believe that my sister was a princess and my entire family was out to get me. 5 minutes of sleep was fine. I tweeted everything on my mind. I thought Fidel Castro was a humanitarian and just an all-around great guy. I killed some open mics though. I dressed like a weirdo, let my nails grow super long, and the worst part, I lost my mind. And I lost some friends, forever. From that person I was for almost 2 months. And the second worst part is, I don't remember most of it. Eventually I reached psychosis and I had to be hospitalized because I completely lost touch with reality. And once I returned home to my parents' house, I got the diagnosis that I had bipolar 1 disorder. And in their home, I fell mute for 3 days. I was in such shock at what I said and did while I was manic that it literally left me speechless. And on day 3, I made a vow to myself. I vowed that once I could speak again, I would never talk about my mental illness, and I would never write poetry again. So, how'd I end up here? Sharing my poetry and my story with all of you. Well, what I've learned is not living in your truth is detrimental to your mental health, whether you live with a mental illness or not. And in those 7 years where I kept that promise to myself, I was so lonely. I struggled alone, and I knew no one who could relate to me. And it left me suicidal so many times. And in 2018, it was so bad that I felt like I needed to act upon it. Then something intervened. Something told me that I should just write one poem, post it on social media, and if there's just one person that could relate to me, I will stay. And so I did. I call it coming out of my bipolar closet, and one person commented, I come back to this to make it all bearable. Thank you for being you at Daleen Santana. And there were 3 other messages that I received and 2 other emails from people I've never met who shared my story. Those people saved my life. So yeah, this story does have a happy ending. And yes, coming out of my bipolar closet was terrifying. Yes, it was brave. But if it wasn't for those people who I never met, who reached out to me to let me know that I wasn't alone, that they showed me their love and understanding, this story would have a very different ending. For me, I call it, turning your pain into beauty. Maya Angelou, when she first met Tupac, she called it by asking a question. When was the last time someone told you how important you are? And so when I had this life-changing moment, I wanted to know how some people can take their most painful, even unfair life experiences and somehow turn it into beauty, turn it into hope, into a legacy. And what can I learn from those people? Well, I learned that when you're walking through hell, and hell brings you to a place where you're so close to giving up on yourself, there is still someone who needs what you have. And sometimes you stay alive for those people. And in your journey of finding them and being of service to them, you will find yourself again. And if you need inspiration for people that turn their beauty into their pain into beauty, rather, look around this room. Look at Christina, at Lean, the wonderful speakers that I'm here to bless to be around today. You don't have to be a public speaker, be public on social media about your story. Beauty is in everywhere, in everything, in every intentional action you take to make it beautiful. Take your ugly and make it your future breakthrough. Because I've never seen an ugly without a story. And I've known ugly in all its ugly glory. But I usually place ugly in its own ugly category, like ugly takes up too much space and needs its own territory. Now, I'm not trying to sound too accusatory, but when I speak of my illness, I put aside the ugly like it's obligatory. Because I fear if I share my ugly, you'll get all discriminatory and leave comments that'll leave me in a racing mental purgatory. When I usually speak words of my illness, I usually speak words of forgiveness. I speak my words, but those who listen know they're not alone in this. And when I say ugly, I mean when you've woken up one morning, tears pouring down your cheeks, because you can't remember where you are or how you fell asleep. Here, your episode is over, dear. Time for you to disappear. And place this ugly right next to your past ugly memory around this same time last year, when you closed your eyes and walked across the freeway because you felt like God. That's right. You can walk on water. And everything God knows, it's because you taught her. Officer, why are you arresting me? Don't you have any sympathy? I have a mental illness. I just didn't take my meds religiously. But I'm a normal person. I'm a creative, and I can't work a 9 to 5. I'm pursuing my dreams while my mental demons try to eat me alive. Now, officer, let's talk for 4 to 5 hours. I'll do most of the talking. I'll tell you how once I heard voices barking my name on a plane, and now every time I travel, I'll take some champagne for the pain. Now, officer, are you trained when you're confronted with a person like me, who technically hasn't been charged with any criminal activity? Do you think we're all scapegoats in today's society? Do you think it's cool how accepting my illness brought out my true humanity? See, I know my ugly is ugly, and I can only speak for me. When I tell you when I was manic, I spent a ton of money, and my mind was hallucinating and playing tricks on me. Like when my mother, father, sister were lovingly holding me, I actually saw them choking me. Until this day, when my mind replays this, that's all I'll ever see. And there is so much more ugly in so many stories. Society may call us crazy, but what we've been through isn't imaginatory. It's not just how we've gone through, it's what we've gone through. And how maybe, just maybe, your past ugly can be your future breakthrough. Thank you so much.